The day you say I do, you are ultimately saying that you are accepting your man the way he is. Today's video and podcast is for my sisters who desire marriage or are dating. Now, much time is spent on helping married couples, but we also need to share knowledge with those that desire marriage. I truly believe that if more time or preparation were given to those before they get married, if they really had an understanding of what they were getting themselves into and what they were signing up for, that we will see more marriages more successful. Because a lot of times people, as I'm talking and working with women, they just didn't know. There were certain things that I didn't know before I got married that I had to learn or relearn, or the way I was thinking and I thought it was correct. I'm like, it wasn't correct. These are unrealistic expectations that I had. But we need to have more of this conversation because there are people who still believe in marriage. I still believe marriage is a beautiful thing, despite what statistics say. Despite what's happening, there are some marriages that are thriving, that are living out the institution the way that God created it for us. All right. So here are 3 things that I want you to consider before saying I do. Now, if you already said I do, we can still help you, right? But these are things that I really want the women who desire marriage. Maybe you're engaged, you're thinking about getting married, or maybe the thought is there and you don't even have a dude yet, but you're like, I know I want to be a wife. This is some stuff you need to think about. Number 1, love, do not marry a man based on his potential. Don't marry him based on his potential. Okay? The day that you say I do, you are ultimately saying that you love that man and you are accepting him the way that he is. There is no guarantee he's going to change. So when you say I do, you are ultimately saying what I see of him and where we are right now, like if it stays just like this, like I'm good with this for the rest of my life. I can accept this the way that it is. If you can't accept it the way that it is, and you guys haven't had a conversation about it, or you aren't in counseling about it, trying to figure it out, then don't assume that it's going to change. Okay? Be very, very mindful of this. I work with a lot of women. They're years into their marriages and their frustration has like gone to another level because their husband is doing things, ultimately the same things that they were doing before they got married. So in my mind, the way I look at it is he didn't trick you. He didn't lie to you. He was consistent with who he said he was. You thought it was going to be growth. You thought it was going to be change, but he never said it. Okay? If you look at your dude before you get married and he's not good with finances or he's not good with budgeting, you can't assume that over time he's going to, 1, have a desire to change that way, or 2, that he's going to do it. If that's something that bothers you, then that's a conversation you need to have had before you say I do. Or if you say I do and say, hey, these are things I want to work on before the wedding to see if there can be some growth. Okay? The premarital counseling with the right person, because that's another conversation. But these are conversations that need to be had. So you typically, when, men based off what they see. So when a man proposes to a woman, they're happy with who you are. Right? The biggest challenge that I see in marriage is men say, hey, she was doing this before we got married, and then right after I gave her the ring, and then she done changed. Right? But they want that woman that they proposed to. And then women, they marry a man and they see like, oh, he can be this, he can be that. And then he never becomes it, and then you're frustrated. Right? Like there's this clash that goes back and forth. But we got to have clear conversations with one another of what are your expectations? What are you thinking about? What do you want to do? What are you expecting? What do you consider is, a good life? These are conversations to have. Now, if you're already married and you're realizing, you know what, maybe I did marry based off of potential and there were things that you wish you would have worked on before and you didn't work on, I'm not saying there's no hope, but you got to take some time. You can't rush this process. You can't assume when he's going to get it. Can't assume that at some point he's going to be better to communicate, or he's going to do better with the money, or he's going to do different things differently with intimacy or helping around the house. That's the importance of having these conversations. So do not marry based on potential. Marry based on what you see, because what you want from that man may not be what he wants for himself. Okay? Number 2, question to ask yourself: does he meet your non-negotiables? You should have non-negotiables. What are non-negotiables? I talk about it in my book, God's Marriage and My Marriage. Non-negotiables are those things that you know that you need, that you can't budge about. Like, this is what matters to me, and if he don't have this stuff, or I don't see any traits of this, then I can't marry him. Now, this is the part, ladies, where you got to be realistic about what your non-negotiables are. Because I hear some non-negotiables, and in my mind I say, that has nothing to do with a healthy marriage. Right? Like, that is not going to sustain you when it's all said and done, for being married for 16 years. Of course, I can say that now. So, like, making sure a dude is 6'4", or that he has to be taller than you, that's nice to have it. But does that matter when it comes to sustaining your marriage? Those are things you got to ask yourself. Does he, what are those non-negotiables? Our non-negotiables should be based on, I like to say, like, our core values or things that matter. For example, one of my non-negotiables was I had to be with a man who had a relationship with God. I didn't say somebody who went to church. A relationship with God and could hear God's voice. That mattered to me. That's a non-negotiable, because God is the head of my life, right? We gonna clash if you have another religion. We're going to clash if you don't believe that there is a God. It's not going to work. Okay? Now, he didn't have to be a holy roller type of thing. He didn't have to know all these scriptures and quote scriptures all day. That didn't matter to me. That might matter to you. I don't know. That didn't matter to me. But does he have a relationship with God? That matters. Okay? Those are those type of things, because that's what's going to sustain us. Like, there were certain conversations that I had. Like, for me, I guess it could go with non-negotiables or even potential, like, certain things about raising my kids. There were certain things that I knew that I wanted. Those are conversations that I had to see if we agreed the same way of living. What's your thought process about goals and things of life? I knew I needed a man who had a life. And what I mean by that is, you can't be sitting around waiting for me to come home, because I'm a busy person. I've always been busy. I will always probably be busy. Like, I'm moving, I'm shaking, I'm moving, I'm doing things. I cannot have a man that's sitting at home just waiting for me to be there. Do you have a life outside of me? That matters to me. That's a non-negotiable. I couldn't have a man, and no shade on this one, who played video games a lot. That wasn't going to work for me. If it works for you, then you know what works for you. But I knew for me, that wasn't going to work for me. I could not. I don't know. To me, that's just lack of productivity, right? Read a book, right? But again, that's me personally. So you've got to know, what are those non-negotiables. Write those things down. If you don't know where to start, then you need to look at men through the lens of your core values. What are your core values? What things matter to you? Discipline, that matters to me. Respect, balance, having certain boundaries, leadership, operating in excellence. Those are things that matter. So be mindful when you're writing out these non-negotiables, but you need to have them. Okay? You really need to have them. It really needs to be foundational when you're selecting a guy. I hear different people, they talk about dating right now and what it's like out there and all these different things. So, not that you need to compromise with everything, but there are certain things that that need to be there for you, and it's okay to have them, but you've got to have a clear mind. And no, that doesn't mean when you start dating dudes, you just go off this list. No, people show you who they are over time. You'll be able to have certain conversations. You're not trying to run them off, but understand and present yourself the way that you want to receive certain things, right? If you want a man who is good with his money, are you good with your money? If you want a man that gives you respect, are you able to show him respect? So those are things that you work on as well. Okay. Number 3, that matters before saying I do or accepting a proposal. When you are intentionally dating with the goal of marriage, make sure you focus more on building a friendship than making yourself his wife. If the goal is forever, why are so many people rushing to get to the altar? You don't even know him. He ain't even your homie. If he's not your homie, I don't know how you're going to sustain those real hard seasons that come. I know my husband and I have gone through some challenging seasons, but one of the things that endured the most that kept us going was like, yo, that's my homie. Like, I care about him as a friend. Like, it's times like, man, did I marry the right dude? Right? Let's be honest. You go through those different moments, but there's something about it because we were each other's friends. There was still always a level of respect there. We can go kick it together. We can talk. We can laugh. I could put my guard down. I'm not putting on this facade every time I'm around him. I'm showing him my true self because that's what happens in friendship. If you lead like that when you're dating and just like, yo, can we have fun together? Can we kick it? Can I talk to you? Everything doesn't have to be so focused on, is he husband material or is she wife material? Are you friend material? Because if you're friend material, we can possibly build upon that. Because people are getting married to people that they don't even really like. They don't really like them. You need to be able to like your dude. Friendship matters. He needs to be your friend. And if he stays so much in friend zone that there's no romantic interest, then I mean that lets you know right there, then that's it. But don't push it so much, right? That you just pushing him away because you just ready to talk about wedding day. Nah, can y'all kick it? All right. Focus on a friendship and building a friendship because that is what's going to sustain you in all of the seasons of marriage. If you are planning, I'm going to make this clear. If you are planning to get married and not want to get a divorce, these are certain things that matter. These are certain things that you need to put in place. This is just 3 things. There's other things, but these are some things that you can really work on, that is in your grasp, that's within your reach, that you could possibly do, and how you present yourself. Okay. The biggest thing, ladies, as we get ready to kind of close up, today's not a long one, is you can't change a man. So remember that. No matter what, you can't change him. Even if you are married and you're listening, you can't change him at all, especially if he doesn't have a desire to change. All right? You can't change him. Only the Holy Spirit can do that. Now, once you become married, there are certain things that I was praying specifically for God to move through my husband and his timing. Yeah, because I have power to cover you as your wife now. You know what I'm saying? My prayers and things of that nature. So I got the Holy Spirit on my side, right? So I can pray, I can do certain things and allow him to do the changing, not me. And I'm trusting God's time. So that's one part of it. But when he's not your husband yet, there's some things you can really look out for or pay attention to before you say I do. And most importantly, out of everything else that I shared with just those 3 strategies, as believers, as women of God, ask God if he's the one. Did you ask God? Is he the one? That was one of my first things, even when I went through this process of who do I want to be my husband. I had choices, I had options. I'm like, but God, who's the one? Who's going to be the person that's going to be the man I need 10 years down the line? That's what matters to me more than how tall or how short he is or how much money he has or what he has in that moment, because I can't see down the line. I relied on God a lot when I chose my husband, right? There were certain things I was like, I don't know. But when God said, yes, he aligns with your purpose. How do I come against that? I can't look at God and say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. No, because you know what's going to happen. God knew better than I knew what he had in store for my life. And I thank God that I married my husband. I thank God. Thank God. Because being married to him allows me to thrive in my purpose. That doesn't happen with every man. I don't care how good the sex may be. I don't care how much money he has. I don't care how good he looks. Does he align and help you thrive in your purpose as a daughter of God? Or will he get in the way of your purpose? You don't want that. So those are the type of things that we pray and that we ask for. These are the type of questions. God, you know better. Let me know before I even waste my time. Is it worth even building a friendship with this dude? Because he knows, and trust what he says. And when he tells you, this is what I did. When God told me, this is the one, I wrote it down on a Post-it note and I put it somewhere so that when things would happen, I wouldn't just be like, yo, forget it, I don't want to be with him. You know, whatever. Because we had some rocky moments before we finally got to the altar to say I do. But I was reminded, God said, he's the one. He's the one. Don't let this other dude throw you off. No. That's a setup. He is the one for your forever. You want a man for your forever. Forever. Okay, love? So self-reflect, focus on yourself during this season, because there are things that you have to prepare and work on. And one of the things that I have created is my online course, God's Marriage or My Marriage, which is perfect for women who are married and women who desire marriage. And I go through just some 3 basic foundational principle things that you can be working on while you're preparing yourself to be a wife. And if you are already a wife, it's lifetime access. The information is on my website. It's very affordable, and it'll help you really process through different things that you can work on to make sure you're presenting your best self to potential prospects, I guess you could say, or men that you desire to even date. All right. So until next time, make sure you subscribe to my channel or to the podcast and continue to pursue being heroic, empowered, and resilient. Have a good one.